Well, welcome and good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Strasberg, and on behalf of all the members of the Christian Business Board, it's a real pleasure to welcome you to tonight's virtual leadership event. This is the fourth in the series of events that we've been running as the CBB is trying to live out its mission of being able to affect the business community in Western New York and really across the nation and around the world. We're grateful that you're able to be with us tonight. And if you're going to listen to the recording afterwards, we're grateful that you'll have a chance to watch the great presentation that we have tonight from Dr. Lenita Davis on selling through the waves of uncertainty. We're really blessed to be able to share her expertise tonight, and we just hope that you'll hang on and ask some questions at the end. We're going to have a short question and answer period at the end. If you want to ask a question, please enter it into the chat and we will present it to Lenita, and hopefully she'll have some great answers for us. I'm sure she will. The mission of the CBB is to affect the Western New York business community by enabling its business leaders and business professionals to use whatever influence that they have in their professional positions to be kingdom ministers for God. We see our businesses and our roles in organizations as opportunities to represent God wherever we are. And all of our resources, all of our businesses, all of our capacity belongs to Him. And we need to be able to honor Him by using it wisely and by being able to represent our faith to people as we just go out into the world and provide whatever services, do whatever work we need to do as we interact with our customers, our clients, our suppliers, our employees. We want to make sure that we're behaving out of biblical principles and using scriptural wisdom to do the decision making that we need to on a moment by moment basis. So we're just grateful that you're here, and I just want to now turn it over to my colleague and friend Linda Penn for a brief prayer, and she will also introduce Lenita Davis.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Linda Penn, and I have a nonprofit and a radio program on 4 stations. And Lenita Davis and I came to know each other through Pinnacle Forum. We're in a community group together, and I just wanted you to get to know her by having her on a Facebook Live with Christian Business Board. She is Dr. Lenita Davis. She's the director of the Center of Sales and Sales Management at the University of Wisconsin. She's also been the executive director at the University of Arkansas in professional sales program. She has done so many things and written so many articles and been so impactful of even starting a system that's being used in universities, over 30 universities and colleges. She also has been used in writing articles, and she also has been in the workplace sales environment in Cincinnati, Procter & Gamble. She's come up through the ranks. So she's not only knowledgeable in her education, she is knowledgeable because she has been in the workforce. I'm really excited that you are getting to hear her tonight. So I would like to just open this time with prayer. Father, thank you. Thank you for the privilege of getting to know people, be in community, and to encourage and inspire men and women that are in business, especially during this time that we've been through. Use this tonight to inspire, encourage, instruct, give bite-sized empowerment to be able to move forward for your honor and your glory. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Welcome, Dr. Lenita Davis.
I never hit that unmute button quick enough. Thank you so much for the introduction. Something Linda doesn't know, and I don't advertise too much, but I really admire this group. I've been in business myself. I've run a dry cleaners. I used to own a couple of dry cleaners back in Ohio. And I've also been a landlord and had multifamily dwellings. So real familiar with the challenges of owning and operating a business. I really admire business owners because you never take a break. You're always on. So thank you so much for having me this evening. And I will start. Let me see. Let's see if technology is going to work for me. There it is. All right. So here's my topic, selling through the waves of uncertainty. I mean, do I need to explain more? I'm sure you've all been through some things with the last year with everything that's going on. And we're not here today to bemoan about, the challenges that were presented, rather than let's look for opportunities on how we can use this as a leverage to take our businesses to the very next level. Okay, and so that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. And as a way of getting started, I'm just curious. One of the things I challenge my audiences are think through what are some of the things you're able to do or you've started to do because of the pandemic and COVID and the recent challenges. We're doing one right here now, and that's meeting through Zoom. I think if it hadn't been for COVID, the opportunity to connect with you probably wouldn't even occur to most of us, right? And so here today, I'm going to talk about how we can continue to leverage that. So I'm going to switch the slide before we all get seasick. Wait a minute. Let's see. Okay. Oh. No. Oh, there we go. Sorry about that. And I'm going to start about some success stories that I've found in business who have gone to the next level with COVID. Here in this picture, you see two sisters. They grew up in Germany. They moved to the US. They're US citizens, and they spent some time overseas, and they had a mission of a laundromat. Can you imagine? They wanted to open a laundromat as a way of changing the laundry industry. And they wanted to be so impactful that they'd inspire people in the laundry industry become more caring, customer focused, and environmentally educate the entire industry. So they opened up this really nice laundry in Brooklyn, New York, of all places. Well, soon after they opened, lockdown. And so they got very creative in terms of and how they responded. They had drop-off laundry, but in light of COVID, they actually set up appointment times and an entire system for doing drop-off laundry in a safe, sanitary way. The other thing is they set up online appointments for their regular customers that came in, and as a part of community, gave preferences to first responders and that kind of thing as they set appointments. And then they also established what's called the Laundry of Love. And as a part of the community, they got their customers to kind of contribute and think about others who could maybe had trouble or struggling, and to give some money to do the laundry of some of their fellow community members, right? And when you look at how they set up their laundry, I mean, it's really about building that community. So one of the things is they have some days where they serve salad, right? At the laundromat of all places, right? I've been to some laundries, and most of them I wouldn't be caught dead. I mean, I wouldn't eat in there, but apparently this laundry is very high end. If you look to your right, you'll see, the setup of their laundromat. They even serve tea, and they have a little terrace where people can sit while they do their laundry. They have a little quiet area where you can do Wi-Fi while you do your laundry. It's really become the hangout spot in Brooklyn during even with COVID. They've been featured in Vogue magazine. They've been featured by Google, and all of this growth has been occurring during COVID. So there you go. Here's another example of someone else who's done well. You wouldn't expect it, but it's sprinkled with pink. And so, I mean, I have to go back to yesteryear, but this business specialized in bachelorette parties, right? That's why I said I'm going to go back to yesteryear, because I've been married a few decades, so I didn't know people still have bachelorette parties. But anyway, but that was their thing. They did party paraphernalia, personalized monogram, that kind of thing. Well, you can imagine what happened when the pandemic happened, right? Weddings stopped, bachelorette parties stopped. And they use this time, I mean, their mission is to create an OMG moment So you can tell they appeal to a younger audience, right? When you're buying a gift or planning an event. And so it's very targeted to individuals and consumers and parties. Well, all that went away with COVID. So they did a shift. First of all, they took that time to kind of reset, take a pause, and they were able to streamline their operations and figure out how to increase efficiencies. They switched their business model from individuals to now expanding it to include business clients and corporate gifting, right? And so that was another thing. And then they created experiences for their customers. So they started this virtual road trip on Instagram for their clients, right? As a way of keeping that connection, keeping that fun atmosphere that's entitled with their vision. So they got really creative. They were able to bring back all their employees, and they're doing well. They did, when I read, they were expecting to double their business in 2020. Now that didn't happen, right? I didn't start with once upon a time, but they were able to keep the same level of profits they had the year previous. And so you can imagine if they did that during COVID, what's 2021, 22 going to look like for them? It's going to be fabulous. So that's another area, another story that I have about people who have done well. So I thought, what can we learn from this? What can we learn? What are the common characteristics that we see among these two different businesses, Sprinkled in Pink and the laundromat? I'll just say the laundromat, okay? Some of the common themes. One, they're very customer focused, right? They identified and met a customer need. They also expanded their definition of who they called a customer. As I mentioned, that Sprinkled with Pink. They went from just the bachelorettes and the weddings to now corporate gifting, right? And, they just, well, there you go. So they expanded their definition of customer. They also, both of them that I've just mentioned, were very community focused in that they wanted to create a sense of community around their business and their mission, right? And they also wanted to do good in the community, right? And they did that through service, right? The laundry of love, right? And they also did that through communication. And what I'll talk about later is experience, right? The Instagram with the customers. We can't travel for real, so we're going to do an Instagram trip with our customers. So they're very community focused. And then they're creative. They focused on their mission, and they look for different ways to accomplish that mission. Right? So what are ways we can impact the laundry industry? What are different ways we can impact the community? What are ways we can create an awesome, I'll just say an OMG moment or awesome moment for people when they're doing gifts or planning things with their team? And so, I have here 1 Peter 4:10. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. We serve a very creative God, and he's given us, if you think about the gifts of the talents, he's given us all a lot of different talents. And so we need to focus on what are ways we can serve and be faithful stewards of God. And so in each one of these examples, it was about serving, right? And being true to their mission. And how can we serve more people and that kind of thing. And it's with that framework, you start to generate those ideas and creativity. So you ask me, what does all that have to do with selling? Well, that is the essence of sales, right? A true salesperson is someone who is focused on their customer, right? How can I help? How can I serve? That is the core of sales, building relationships, those kinds of things. Salespeople have to be very creative because you're out helping people solve problems, and that takes not only knowledge and wisdom, but it takes some amount of creativity. And, we don't typically think of this before, but in today's age, in sales, you're about building communities, because I don't know how many of you done it, but nowadays when you take a meeting with somebody, they're already looking you up on LinkedIn before you ever meet them face to face. So they're not only meeting with you, they're meeting with your whole network and your whole community behind you. And, I've done some research where now it's not just sales network, it's like whole ecosystems, right? So because people look at your whole network that you have, and they're trying to consider whether or not they want you in your network, right? How many of us have met someone, seen their Facebook, they want to be our friend, and you've seen some unsavory stuff that you definitely don't want coming across your post. So you decide not to friend them on Facebook. Am I alone with that? No, Linda's like, no, you're not alone. Yes, I am alone, Linda. I'm just kidding. But
Yeah.
you have to think about the community. You're building a community every time you connect with someone. Every time you sell, you're building a community. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about this, but this is all of what sales is now comprised of. And so I always remind my students, and I've even talked to some business owners where they go, I don't like to sell. And I go, what's wrong with that? You're trying to trick people and manipulate people to buy something they may not need, they don't want. And I go, sales is not a dirty word. Sales is about helping and serving. If you really think about it. I mean, I love to quote Zig Ziglar, who often says that you don't get what you want in life till you help other people get what they want and need in life. And so the focus in sales is helping others to get what they need or help others fulfill the mission and purpose that God has on their life. And so I always say selling is about creatively helping others and fulfilling God's purpose here on earth, because that's why God put us here, to love our neighbor, right? And to care for others. And so I always compare, I use my sailboat theme. If you think about our three things I just talked about, customer knowledge, knowing our customer, we can't move without it, right? So I put the rigging, the lines, the mainsail, all that, the top part of the boat as our customer knowledge. Our community holds, I put keel and then, okay, well, I'll reframe that later, but community keel keeps the customer and everyone who's invested in your business, that holds them in the sailboat. And then last, I should have put rudder, but that's the creativity driven by the Holy Spirit. That provides us direction and the way that we're going to go. Okay. And so let me speak a little bit more about that. So let's talk about who is our customer. Okay. A lot of times, and I call this any entity that is needed to make your business run. And I would have said person, but the first thing on the list is the Holy Trinity, right? Father, Son, Holy Spirit, all three. That's our number one customer. I don't think anybody on here is going to disagree with that, right? Next, we got to think about our employees, right? Our employees are a customer as well, because without employees, we're learning today, you can't make the business go, right? And so we need to start tapping into, view them as a customer. People or organizations that purchase from you, that's the one we tend to focus on the most. Our suppliers are also customers, even though we buy from them. If we don't have suppliers and those people pouring into our business, we're out. I mean, we can't function. So we need to think about this duality here. And then local and national authority. We've got, we've learned you got to obey the law, and there's some regulations, there's some things that we have to do. We have to understand, and the better we understand it and can respond to it, the more profitable, the better our business will grow, the more people are going to invest and support in our business. So I say serve wholeheartedly as if you were serving the Lord, not people, because you know that the Lord will reward each one for whatever good they do, whether they're a slave or free. So we have to operate as if we are serving God, whether that be employees, customers, anyone in there. I mean, of course, we've got the Trinity up at the top, but we've got, just like we do the Trinity, we've got to serve all the other people who are our customers. And so part of that, I mean, just like we seek to try to understand what God wants, we also have to seek and try to understand what our other customers want and how that fits into the mission and the purpose that we have for our business. Okay. So I'm going really fast. And so how do I hear the voice of the customer? Well, to answer before listening, that is a folly and a shame. I always say your number one sales skill is listening. I make my students repeat that almost every week. What's the number one sales skill? Listening. Listening, not talking, listening. And part of listening is understanding what the need is, right? And that's asking questions, really understanding what is going on. And so I have some standard questions that I always ask people, because if you ask people, if I were to ask anybody here, what do you need? I'm going to get silence, right? I don't know. All right. So it's the same thing happens when you ask people. My favorite thing to do is when you go out with a group for lunch, right? Where are we going to go for lunch? You know how these conversations go. Hardly anyone ever really knows where they want to go. Oh, we could do Chinese, we could do this, that, and the other. It's the same thing with asking people directly what they need. So you have to play detective as a sales in sales, and where you want to understand what your customer needs. And you go, what is working well? So just ask them, what's working well? What's not working well? What happens if you had more of what is working well? And what happens if you fix what is not working well? Or what happens if you don't fix it? What are the consequences? Okay. Now, I always like to ask someone, what if you don't fix it? Because a lot of people, it's that pain, facing that pain causes change, right? If you keep going on this path, let's think about what's going to transpire. Now, some people are motivated, but you have to understand who you're talking to. Some people, pain. Some people, it's the promise of reward, right? So avoiding pain, promise of reward. These are the kind of things, you have to think about when you're trying to identify people's needs, okay? All right. So needs ID is the first step. Then once you understand what their needs are, then what do you think is next? How am I going to meet that need, right? What is the value that I bring to my customers, okay? And so, before you start any kind of interaction, and I'm sure all of you have already done this, is defining the value that you bring to your customers. I think COVID has really caused us to re-examine what is our value? How can we add more value to what it is that we're bringing? And value isn't totally encompassing your product or adding more features to your product, but it's also the kind of experience you provide for your customers when they interact with you. There was one study done on B2B sales, and it was when they surveyed these purchasing people, they loved, it was for a customer relationship management software program. They loved the program. But when asked if they would repurchase, they said, no way. And they're like, why? What's wrong? And they were like, it was the bureaucracy. It was within their own organization. It was the whole experience was a lot of work, right? And so the experience of buying it was going to keep them from buying it again, right? And so when we look at value, we also have to consider the experience that we create when people buy from us, because the experience oftentimes is remembered more strongly than the actual use of the product. It has a bigger weight. And so what is your value? And it's going to change with each type of customer that you have. what does God value? What does your employee value? What does your customer value? I mean, really think that it's going to change, right? As you go through each type of these customers. And it will also change by who's listening, right? So it also changes by circumstances and context. If we think about what we valued, I don't know, before the pandemic, it's a whole lot different than what it would be now. And so we may have to re-examine what our customers value given all these life changes. I know things that I thought were very important before, not so much now. I'll say I'll never go to all you can eat buffet again, right? But that used to be very important to me, but I don't think I'm going back, right? And so we've also, when we define the value, we also have to measure the value. And so value is measured by the recipient. So, you know, your God or your employees or your customers are the ones that measuring the value. Value is also relative to options, other options, especially for, probably not for God, but probably for the employees and the customers. The value you bring is always compared to the value they have of doing something else, right? And so you've got to understand where you stand relative to your competitor or relative to other options, right? And so making your value more important than those other options, right? And again, it varies with circumstances and it has multiple components. A lot of times we just focus on price. And I'm going to talk for a minute why that can lead you astray, but there's multiple components. It's never just one thing. And so as a business owner, it's very important you understand what all those different components are. Okay, on value. All right. Any questions or comments so far? I like to be very interactive. Nothing?
Lenita, I have just a quick point. I loved your idea about the whole concept of viewing your sales process as operating in an ecosystem and being able, having to look not only at your customers, but your suppliers. One of the things that I do is I do supply chain consulting, trying to help people understand, you know, how to fix broken supply chains. And we're looking at not only our suppliers, but our suppliers' suppliers. You know, in these days, supply chains are broken all over the world.
Right.
And what you said there is so important in both directions, or actually in every direction, employees, customers, and in suppliers. You need to look at your customers' customers as well. So I thought that your comment was just a great validation of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing research now, writing a textbook, and one of the examples I was using is a computer chip, right? There is a huge shortage of computer chips. Well, you go, okay, but that affects cars, that affects watches, appliances. There's going to, you know, they're predicting that there's potentially going to be a lot of shortages because there aren't enough computer chips to put in, I mean, to put out into the marketplace, right? And it's amazing. It's the weather in Houston. There's a lot of external factors that go into that. And the more you see these kinds of things happening, the more you realize we're all interrelated, right? And these supply chains, these connections are very important. It's a whole ecosystem, right? So when we talk about ecosystems, we talk about the external factors that you can't control, right? Like the flood in Houston or the pandemic, right? And then we go down to the government, then we go down to our community, then we go down to our interpersonal relationships, and then we go down to the individual themselves. And so you have to think across all of these levels. And what I tell people is control what you can control to be ready for the stuff that you can't control. But in all of it, God controls. So we're in good hands. All right. Now, here's the difference. And I always take people through this process of, are you product focused or customer focused? Okay. The danger of product focus, and let me talk about product focus, is revenue is created from increasing volume. So you focus on selling more as a way of increasing your revenue. Profits come when price is greater than cost. And so if you look, for example, you have your McDonald's model, right? McDonald's probably has very low margins, but they make their money based on how many hamburgers, French fries, Diet Cokes they sell, right? And they sell a lot. And so their revenue comes from selling those burgers. So you see McDonald's everywhere. They're trying to get you to buy. And then you see Timex watch, another one, okay? Versus customer focus. So revenue is generated from satisfied customers. And so the point there is the focus on customer focus is the more I increase customer satisfaction, the more I create more satisfied customers, then the bigger my revenue is going to be. And so the price then is based on value. What is the value that I bring? So when you look at, I don't know, if you're going to buy a Rolls Royce, you can't get a Rolls Royce cheap. They probably don't even, I don't even go in the showroom, but they probably don't negotiate with you. But when they sell your Rolls Royce, they say this is the best leather, it's handmade, it's hand tooled. So when you're on this leather, it'll, you'll never be cold. I don't know, but it's sold on prestige and the value. These things last forever. We have the best wood. It will put you in a different light. When you come and get your car serviced, we treat you like gold. I mean, everything is based on, price is based on value, not on what it costs to make that Rolls Royce. The same could be said for a Rolex watch. Those of you who own a Rolex watch, I mean, it's about the experience. It's about the value of owning a Rolex, right? And what a Rolex signifies, how a Rolex is put together. They go into great detail to create an experience for you and to really sell you on the value of a Rolex watch. I am sure it does not cost $40,000, $50,000 to manufacture that Rolex watch. The price is based on the value that it brings to those that buy it. And profits come when value is greater than the price. Same with Starbucks. What is coffee at Starbucks now? $4 or $5? I don't know, but Starbucks, they create an experience and they talk about the value they bring. Part of our money goes to helping create a better world. We have, and I used to go to Starbucks, they had live music playing at the Starbucks I used to go to, and they create an atmosphere. And this is the freshest coffee. It's just ground right here in the store. And this, really sells you on the value of Starbucks coffee. And so when you think about what type, when you're selling your products and service, are you focused on the product? Or are you focused on the value that you're bringing to the customer? And creating satisfied customers and creating an experience for your customers that's going to last long beyond the consumption of that product or service. Okay, so the next part, we talked about knowing our customer. The next part is creating community. And we've all been on the digital space, trying to create digital communities. I'm trying to get likes. I don't know how many of you have been caught up in getting your LinkedIn profile, how many connects you can get on your LinkedIn profile. We get all caught up. But how do we create a real community, especially when you're in business? And so community is about shared experiences, attitudes, and values, right? And our nation, we can become very divided in our country, let's say, but there's still some shared experience, attitudes, and values. If we look for where we connect or where we're the same versus, so much of our attention recently has been on our differences, mask wear, non-mask wear, I don't know what else, all the different things. But look, for example, we all like a good meal. Who doesn't like a good meal, right? who hasn't had a good meal. I mean, there's all kinds of shared experience, attitudes, and values that we can share. And so what you want to do in your community is focus on that, especially attitudes and values that'll include more people, okay? And then create a customer journey. So what are the points of interaction? So when someone finds out about your business, where do they find out about it? Is it word of mouth? So what's that word of mouth going to be like? Is it on the web? So what's the experience like finding you on the web? Is it easy? Is it hard? When they go to your website, how many clicks do they have to go through to find information? What is that interaction like? When they call you on the phone, what is that like? Email, you've got to think about all these points of interaction that a customer has with you and what will be the experience like for them, right? And so in sales and any kind of marketing of your business or service, considering those points of interaction are critical. And what is the experience like? And what is the path? So if I want to purchase your product or service, what is the path to do that, right? And is it clearly communicated, or do I have to click 10 buttons? Do I have to talk to 5 people? I'm in the process now, and I'm about to give up, but I'm trying to buy a software package for my university. So I go to the website, I ask for a demo. They set up the time for the demo. It ends up being a qualifying meeting. So they say, okay, you're qualified, but you really should go to our partner people. I'm going to forward you over there. Well, the partner people never got in touch with me. And I've emailed them 3 times and I still haven't. So I'm going, oh, they don't want my money, right? It sounded like it was going to be very efficient, but the path was not clearly communicated. And then there's a lot of obstacles to get to the path, right? No one wants to set up 5 meetings just to find out, to get a demo and find out how much the product costs, right? So think about what is the path. And then I talked about finding common attitudes and values that will include rather than exclude people. So when you're creating a community around your product or service, think about the laundromat, right? They said they wanted to create a great laundromat experience, clean clothes, environmentally friendly, a nice clean place where you can do work and that kind of thing. Well, who doesn't want clean clothes, right? That's very inclusive, common attitude. I mean, it's rare you're going to find someone who's going to openly admit, I want dirty clothes. I don't want to wash my clothes, right? Who doesn't want a clean environment to do their laundry? Any of us who've been to a typical laundromat, it's like, oof, it's not a place you want to hang out. It's a place you want to get in, get out, and do your thing, right? And so they really tapped into some commonalities that we can all, that will include a lot of people, especially people who have to do their clothes in a laundromat. And then they created points of interaction between members of the network, or in this case, the ecosystem, right? So in their case, it was the laundry of love, right? So there's some members who are less fortunate. Let's kick in and help those people. But it could be other type of events or other types of interactions you may want to create among people in your network. One thing I like to do, and I tell when I teach sales, it's I call it the Miracle on 13th Street kind of sales attitude. If you remember Santa Claus, if somebody could not find the product or service they needed from Macy's, Santa Claus directed them to a store that did have their product or service, right? And so a lot of times if I can't do something for one of my customers that work with me in my sales program, I will direct them to someone else and help them solve their problem. I call that planting a seed. It's going to come back to me. But creating those points of interaction between members of your network is very important, because now you have a stronger network of support for your business or service. The people remember that, and it will definitely come back to you. Yeah, I just believe the law of sowing and reaping. And so I just call that sowing a seed, and I'm going to reap and yield a return. So creating a community. So some ideas for creating a community. Identify and look for opportunities to connect. How many of you have a customer relationship management system or a spreadsheet of all the customers with their contact information, right? Do you track the last time you spoke to them and what the conversation was about, right? How many touches do you have with each one of these customers or potential customers? And by that, I mean, do you email them just in general, you know, about what's happening with your business, or to give them information about the industry that they might be in that might be helpful? Not that you're trying to close a sale, but it's just a touch, right? It says, for those who do B2B sales and call on a client, it takes between 5 to 7 touches before you actually get a face-to-face meeting. So that's not just phone calls, it's emails. There's all kinds of creative ways to touch or interact with someone, right? And so think about that. And even with the customers you currently have that are regulars, keeping those touches. Every time you touch, you strengthen the relationship. And so do you have a planned strategy for creating those customer touches? The other one, I said, create rituals and traditions with your community members. So do you send out Christmas cards? These are just blue sky things I can think of to create traditions, but I have people I buy from every year, and, you know, oh man, where's my Christmas card from so-and-so? Oh man, did I get it? Right? I used to have one clothier that I helped him, I help customer companies hire sales reps. And I used to get silk scarves from them every year, right? I was like, oh. Then you stop again, I was like, oh, where's my silk scarf? And I'd wear it and I'd brag, I got this from Tom James, which created word of mouth, right, for that company. So what traditions are you building within your community? What things are you doing that your customers are looking forward to? Do you send them a birthday card? I had an insurance agent always send us a birthday card and sent my girls a stuffed animal, right? And it's something we look forward to. Never left them just because of a birthday card and teddy bear, but you'd be amazed, right? And so I gave you a few ideas. The other thing is create a logo or symbol that identifies your community. It doesn't have to be a cross. I picked it for this one. But I mean, when you read the Bible and it talks about God raises a standard, right? And we always think that's a behavior or a standard we have to meet. But if you look in the Old Testament, the standard was like a flag. It's a flag that people rallied around in the battle, right? And each flag had a symbol. And so create a symbol, might be your company logo or whatever, that people can rally around. Like, oh, that's Linda. Oh, that's this business or that. I mean, you see those golden arches, we all know what it's going to be. They don't even have to put the words in it, right? McDonald's, right? So create a visual or a symbol that your community can rally around, okay? All right, creativity. I hear this all the time. I'm a very creative person, and I always get this, how can I be more creative? Okay, it's real simple, ask. Ask God. Who's more creative than God? God created what? What's the first verse in the Bible? In the beginning, God created heaven and earth, heavens without void. Ask the man, ask the Almighty, the man upstairs. He is the most creative just force. I just love God. I mean, he's just so creative. The things he does, makes something out of nothing. And he never does the same thing twice. It's just very creative. I get very excited about this. And in Psalms 139, he filled them, I can't see it all because of my screen, but he filled him with wisdom, understanding, all kinds of skills. When you read the book of Nehemiah, right, all the artisans and craftsmen, there were people on that wall. God just filled them with the knowledge and skill to do that. They had no training, no anything, but they opened themselves up. God filled them and gave them the skills and training they needed. On a personal level, my pastor, I don't know what possessed him, asked me to come up with an a cappella group. I don't know why he asked me to do that, but for some reason, I connected with one person, connected with another person, boom, an a cappella group was formed. I have no musical training. I don't know the first thing about it. I led a dance team. I am the worst dancer in the world, but Guy gave me some ideas. He sent me some videos. He did some other things, and it happened. And for a number of years. So the first step in being more creative is just ask, and it will come. The X is stop the voice, and I started to put of the accuser, but we always mix that up with the devil. But a lot of times it's you. Stop your inner critic. Just put the ideas, write them down, put them out there without criticism, without considering the boundaries. Just put them out there. Just put them out there. Be amazed at how many ideas or concepts are killed just by you. And so stop the voice of the inner critic. The other is something we need to do more of. Open yourself up to different people and new experiences. I would say nothing spawns creativity like traveling, but that's not going to be a thing for a minute. But and you've got Google, Facebook, all kinds of things. Meet different people. So you met me tonight, and hopefully I've given you some new ideas and new experiences. Some may be good, some may be bad, but just meeting different people who see the world a different way expands your mind and gives you new creative ideas. And the other is be interested in others, right? So when you're having conversations, take note on who's doing all the talking. If it's you, stop and start working on asking other people questions and being more interested in others. You go, what does that have to do with selling? You'd be amazed at the connections and the communities you can build when you listen more to others, more interested in others than you are in telling your story. I've made some fabulous connections, and God always amazes me at the people that I meet and the things that happen just because I asked people questions and showed interest in them. And so that's another way to spark creativity. The other point is identify boundaries versus ruts. A lot of things that can't be done. That can't be done. It's not a real boundary. It's just that's the way you've always done it. And it's become a rut. It is not a wall. It is not a boundary. It's just a rut. So being able to tell the difference between what's tradition, what we've always done, and what's truly a limit or a boundary is two different things. And it's two different ways to pray, right? One, the rut has to deal with you, right? The boundary, that might have to be divine intervention. I don't know. Depends on what it is. But identifying those two things is very important because, there's nothing too hard for God, right? God's not limited by boundaries, right? And so asking, believing, faith, and understanding boundaries versus ruts, that's going to start opening your mind and being more creative. Okay. Now, back to sales. Hopefully, let's see if I can connect all these thoughts together. There's a lot of stuff in here. But sales is about helping and connecting. We talked about that. We talked about being more customer focused, identifying need, how you will meet the need, understand the value you have to offer people. We talked about creating community. How we create community is either tapping into or developing common experiences and values, creating common experiences to strengthen that community and expand it, and paying attention to points of connection. We either got to establish them or understand the points of connection we have now, where they're helping, where they might be hindering people from connecting with us. We talked about creating traditions, giving people things to look forward to. And then last, we talked about creativity, methods to solve problems, right? Creativity gives you ways of solving problems. And we said, we ask God, see the world without boundaries, right? And understand what's a boundary versus a rut, right? And then silence the critic. So that is kind of the key underpinning of sales. And that's what I have. So questions?
Lenita, we're going to go to a question and answer period in a second,
Oh, that's right. There's
but
another part.
I would,
Sorry.
no, we're great. That was awesome. I want to personally thank you along with Christian Business Board. This is Dominic Seccaroli, for sharing that wealth of information. And I know without a doubt that anybody that's going to listen to this, did listen tonight or through Facebook Live or through the video sent out, that it's going to make a difference in the lives of those that are, definitely struggling during these difficult times. We are going to go to a question and answer period. So if everybody can hold on for 1 minute, I want to contact us through email. You can go to info@christianbusinessboard.com. Website is christianbusinessboard.com. And also through Facebook, we have resources available, and we're creating more. We're also looking for your feedback, because as we're moving toward our next speaker, we're always looking to see exactly some of the needs of the people in the community. And that next event will be on June 20th. So please, get a hold of us through any of those contact ways, and we will definitely consider anything that you send back to us. So with that said, I am going to turn this back over to Bob so we can start our question and answer period with Lenita.
If anyone has any questions, please throw them up in the chat. Lenita, as you were talking, I started to think about different things and I didn't write any of them down. I will continue to think of them and email you. But one of the things that was so interesting to me was you were talking about the idea of creating a symbol, a standard that represents your community. And, usually we think about, for our businesses, creating a logo that represents us. That's, sort of our public face to the world. I found that idea of a standard for the community that we want to create to be so interesting. Can you think of any off the top of your head that we would recognize that are symbols of communities that people in sales have created or organizations have created to help their sales?
Wow. That's really good. Sorry, that was really good. I'm like, oh, you caught me. Can I think about that one? As someone who's created my mind just blanked right when you said that. I can't.
Are you saying, Bob, that that's individuals, or, all of us, you see branding all over the place and you see the symbol and you can tell the company right away? Are you talking about individual kind of identity?
Talking about a symbol that represents a community of people that are connected to an organization that's trying to sell something, whether it be goods or services. One of the examples that come to mind is not even a visual representation, but I follow a guy on the web by the name of Ben Settle. He's an email marketing expert, and he created this community called Al Benbo's Lair, which describes the people that regularly read his stuff. This guy he's really off center in terms of the way that he writes, the way that he talks, the way that he treats his community, but people love him. Or either love him or you hate him. But this whole thing of that title, Al Benbo's Lair, is a description around the people who he regularly attracts to himself.
Yes, you just made me think of it. Thank you for that, Bob. Woo, got me in, now I'm out. The Bayhive, Beyonce. They call themselves the Bayhive, and they have little bees as symbols, right? Rihanna. So the pop stars are doing it, right? And they're selling something, right? They're all selling something, they have names for their members and they have a little emblem and they call themselves the Beehive, the Bayhive, right? Short for Beyonce. I'm a member of a sorority. You don't think it, but they're selling me something. Trust me, it's not free to be in a sorority, right? But we have a logo, we have a, what do you call it? A shield, you know, with the Minerva on it and the shield. We have all of that. And when you see those symbols, you know that's another sorority sister, right? And you see that shield. I know she's a member of my sorority. Christians, we do it, right? We see that fish, the cross, that kind of thing. We know what's up. We go, hi, brother, hey, sister, whatever. You know, so there's all kinds of, there's examples. And, you know, I'm pushing that we should leverage that more. That's just a few off the top of my head, but yeah.
I think we see that in individual community ministry since it's going outside of the church too. It's a way of branding the community or the service, and we've kind of adapted from the products that we can all recognize, like Chevrolet or McDonald's or Starbucks or that. And we're seeing it more for individuals as they blog and they tell their stories. And it seems like it's really quite an effective way now of communicating that. And we certainly need to think about it with CBB, Christian Business Board. We do some roundtable things, and some of the things you mentioned tonight where these people sat around and brainstormed or dreamed or didn't look at the problem, they looked at the opportunity, how to bridge out. So it's a focus of mindset too, isn't it, Lenita?
Yeah, it is a focus of mindset. Oh, Apple is another one. I had to throw that one out. Apple, they make a lot, just that little Apple. But yes, it is a mindset. What's the opportunity? Which is why I led off of what are some of the things you're able to do that you wouldn't have even been done after the pandemic. I mean, because of the pandemic. Think of all the opportunities that have come. I've had professors who are bemoaning the pandemic and having teach online. And I said, well, what can you do now that you couldn't do, you know, what can you do now because of the pandemic that you couldn't do before? I mean, it was attend the Celtics basketball game, right? Because they had some kind of online giveaway. They had a celebrity come speak to their class, right? People are more willing. I mean, it's just a Zoom call now, whereas before we made everything face to face, right? And people had to travel. So it's the mindset. You're right, Linda. What's the opportunity, right? What is the challenge? And that's what God does with everything, you know, he's pushing us.
It looks like Deborah's got a question too. Deborah, why don't you go ahead and ask your question?
Hi, Lenita. I'm part of the CBB, and thank you so much. You've made very difficult things simple to do. And so a question about CBB. We have been praying for community. We want to take the community of what CBB is and extend it wider. But actually, we're having a difficult time getting into. We want to be more inclusive, and we also want to be of service to the business community. Do you have any suggestions to maybe break down some boundaries or what we could serve businesses, how we could do that?
Have you had focus groups with business owners to ask them what's going on?
We've started to do that. Yes. Probably we have to do it a little bit more. That's a great, simple answer.
We actually have talked about that as soon as it opens up more, even if we would have to do it on Zoom. But I mean, you've done it for years in companies or businesses. I've done it in ministry to see what people liked, what they didn't like, what was on their heart, what did they see as a need. So to really focus on that, we would really like to open up our community, open up so we can actually get together and invite business people together and kind of brainstorm that and have those focus groups. And what I learned in ministry is you never had the focus groups ran by the leaders of the ministry. You had other people that they felt safe with. They could say confidential things and they could say exactly what they needed to say, because that's the effectiveness of focus group. Would you agree with that, Lenita?
Yes, I do. I would agree with that. And it's just as simple as what's working well for you. right? Get them to talk about themselves. And if you get people to talk about themselves, I mean, all your questions will be answered, because that's one thing human beings love to do, talk about themselves, right?
Oh, that's wonderful.
You know?
Any other suggestions,
Yes.
Leah? That's good.
No, that's good. And then I would say those points of connection. So you did the mass emails for your events, right? But maybe send out mass emails with just information that will help you in your business, right? So, hey, here's a tip. Maybe, you know, if you have this kind of business, you should do this. You know, you've got Bob in supply chain. He's got a lot of knowledge. Just a short little blurb or a helpful hint or tip that would help somebody in their their day-to-day business, right? And they're like, wow, these guys have a wealth of information. Let me see what else is going on. But those touches, creating those touches,
That's
that's
right.
how you get people in.
Mhm.
You know, if you only reach out when you want them to attend an event, it's going to be tough going.
Okay, brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Lenita, we've got
Awesome.
another question. It reads, could you recap your role or where she's using this sales methodology? Are you using it in your own business? Are you teaching other businesses that you consult with? Or it appears you're also teaching this in your college classes as well.
Right. I run a sales program. So that means I run sales competitions. I teach sales classes to train the next generation of sales reps that go out. And so I do that. I also work with businesses to help them find sales reps, you know, hopefully my students. But, you know, I've done some training recently. Dominic and I were talking, but I was working with World Vision in terms of training blind people how to do inside sales. And that's a real passion of mine. And that was called thinking out the box thinking, right? Because people have such a hard time hiring salespeople. And and I just happened to be hanging out in my new apartment and I ran into this. I didn't know she was the CEO of World Vision, but she heard me talking and I started asking her what she did. And one thing led to another. And I was like, she was telling me how the unemployment rate among blind people was 98%, and I was going, really? Oh my God. Well, oh, she was showing me all the stuff that she could do with her iPhone. I think that's what you got to start it. But she's showing me all the stuff she could do with her iPhone, even though she was blind and all this stuff. And one thing led to another, I was like, you guys could do inside sales. Your students could do inside sales. And she's like, wow, I have all the equipment for a call center right there in my building. We just didn't know what to do with it. I was like, oh my God, and boom, idea was born. So these are the things I do, wherever God leads me.
Lenita, are there online opportunities through your classes or things that you have published, articles that you have written that would be available to men and women in business for sales that you could refer them to just as resources and reference?
Sure, I'll come. If you would like, I'll give you a reading list of different references and things. You probably don't want to read my articles because they're boring. They're written for academics. Right?
Okay.
But I have some resources that you could use and I could refer you to that would be very helpful in your business. And I will.
It's so very, very practical today. Thank you so much. It just helps us to refocus and use those opportunities for creativity rather, kind of pull ourselves out of the pandemic.
Right. I mean, this could be a real opportunity. I mean, Bob, supply chain, man, this is a heyday for you because they're having to reconfigure all the supply chains. And I mean, I'm amazed at this whole supply chain with getting medicine out and now everybody's ordering online. I mean, I'll just take it out of that realm. Everybody's ordering online. And restaurants that are having to rethink how they deliver products and services, right? So logistics, supply chain, wow, it's got to be a good time. Challenging.
There's no doubt about that. Challenging in many ways, but the opportunities are exciting as well. And like you said a number of times to us, you need to be looking for the opportunities that this current time brings. I was just thinking about back to my days as a project manager in a Fortune 500 company. Mm-hmm. And the idea that, even when you're working for somebody else and you may not be responsible directly for sales, you're selling. You're selling yourself, you're selling ideas, and everything that you've talked about tonight allows you to do that. So
Right.
even if you're not in a direct sales role, if you're working for somebody else, if you're a manager somewhere, you're a project manager, what Lenita was talking about tonight will help you be better at your job and provide more value to whatever organization you're working for.
Yeah, if you're an owner, you're selling because you're selling to the bank to give you more money. You're selling to your customers.
Mm.
I always say, if you're a single man trying to get a date, you're selling. If you're a married man, you're selling something, and your kids are the best salespeople ever. Kids are always selling you something. So we use sales and these kind of things all the time. I always say ministers are the best salespeople you'll ever meet. They are. They're amazing.
One of the best pastors I worked with for a number of years before he was saved and went in the ministry, he was a used car salesman.
There you go.
Qualified him for just reaching people. It was wonderful.
There you go. I mean,
You're absolutely right, Lenita.
that's right. What's your need? What's,
Yes.
making that connection,
Yes.
building community. That's like a minister, right? Isn't that what they do?
Mhm.
So there you go. So look at, maybe I should put, instead of sales is helping, sales is ministering. It's a ministry. Because
Well, and that just fits in with our whole philosophy of using our capacity, our professional roles as a way of serving God by doing all the things that you're talking about. Understanding people's needs as a way to open the door to conversations with them, and being able to draw them close by putting them in a community where they feel safe, where they feel wanted, where they feel valued, and where they can receive things that truly will help them. And that then opens that door for the magic question about, do you think you're going to go to heaven?
right. I mean, if you do it right, I've had people, I haven't even had to ask the question. People
Mhm.
sell themselves. People will sell themselves. You're a Christian, aren't you? I didn't even say a word.
Yeah.
But they could, they could just tell, and they sell themselves, right? So a good salesperson, the close is the easiest part because it's a process. And like you said, making that connection, say if it's like, I want to be a part of this community. What's the steps? And making the steps the experience, right? We a lot of times, especially when we're trying to witness, we focus on that closing the deal, getting to pray the prayer, but we don't spend the time of what is the experience like to get there, right? Because the experience to getting to the close is also is kind of foreshadowing what they're going to be like after the close, right?
Mm-hmm.
Relationship.
Right? So something to think about, right?
Oh, it absolutely is.
Well, good. I've done my job.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. So Lenita, thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and I hope you got something out of it.
We goodbye.
Thank you for sharing your notes and
Yeah,
your PowerPoint so we can go back and
Yeah, thank you.
digest it and apply it personally and in our lives with CBB or even our own individual businesses or ministries.
Okay, well, you're welcome.
Just one word of note.
So Lenita,
Yes, Dominic?
Just going to say that our next event is going to be on June 21st. We don't have a speaker identified yet, but we look forward to seeing everyone in a month from now as well.
yeah, I wanted to, Lenita, you talked about opportunity and, your Zig Ziglar said, obstacles turn out to be, opportunities or blessings in disguise, right?
Right.
And the fact that we couldn't meet in person led us to a Zoom call, which led us to you, which we probably would have never had the pleasure of, having here locally. And, I want to thank you so much again for everything you shared tonight. Again, I'm sure that through Facebook Live and all the videos we'll be sending out, that it's truly going to be a, wealth of, information. Anybody else still can, Facebook, Christian Business Board. You'll see it on our website, christianbusinessboard.com. Again, if you have to email us, we'll be at info. Just really believe if you're on Facebook right now, it'd be great if you shared this out. When we do send it out through video, it'd be great to share it to any other business owners, entrepreneurs, nonprofits, or anybody else that's really struggling during this time. And again, it was a real blessing. And again, June 21st, Bob, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The 21st of June.
Okay, Monday night at 7 p.m. And again, based on all the information we're going to get back through our contact information, will definitely is going to have an impact on our next speaker. We thank you. God bless everyone and have an awesome night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Good
Lenita.
night. Thank you, Lenita.
Good night. Thank you.